And delighted those gathered for the 2018 Tony Awards when a most unusual musical not only won the prize for Best Musical, it took home 9 other awards. The band's visit is anything but your stereotypical Broadway musical. In fact, it started life as a 2007 Israeli film. The movie wasn't a musical, and some believed it would be impossible to adapt it into one. They were wrong. What has resulted is something the likes of which you may have never seen in musical form. It is simple, yet complex, touchingly human, yet sarcastically funny at times. On the surface, the story is a simple one. An orchestra from Egypt arrives for their concert in Israel. Unfortunately, they find their way to the wrong town. They get off their bus and discover they are in Bet HaTikva, not Petah Tikva. Their mistake is explained to them by the proprietor of the cafe in this small town.
Let me tell you about Petah Tikva. Such a city, everybody loves it. Lots of fun, lots of art, lots of culture. That's Petah Tikva with a P. Where you are, this is not Petah Tikva. Such a city, nobody knows it. Not a fun, not a art, not a culture. This is Petah Tikva with a B.
Like in boring, like in barren, like in bullshit, like in bland,
like in basically bleak and beige and blah, blah, blah. Stick a pin in a map of the desert, build a road to the middle of the desert, pour cement on the spot in the desert. That's Petah Tikva. Welcome to nowhere.
The band is stranded in this nowhere town that has little to offer, or so it would seem. It turns out the exact opposite is true, as these visitors and the natives make human connections. Sasson Gabay plays the leader of the band, Tufik. He originated that role in the 2007 film and replaced Tony Shalhoub in the role on Broadway, and now he leads the national tour, which settled into a 3-week run at Blumenthal Performing Arts Night Theater through August 25th. He is in our Spirit Square studio right now. Welcome.
Good morning.
Nice.
Hi, Mike.
Nice to have you here. Dina, the cafe owner, is played in this tour by Shalina Kennedy. You may have seen her on Broadway as Carole King in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I got to tell you, I didn't know what to expect coming into this show on Tuesday night. Words fail me when a smile came on my face, I think, as soon as the lights went up on the thing, and stayed there for most of it, even though some of it's fairly sad, because of it is so extraordinarily theatrical. It is brilliant in every way. So congratulations for being in this.
Thank you very much.
And making it so. This is, I think, one of the most perfect theatrical creations I have ever seen. It's unique on so many levels. It is deeply human and honest. It never hits a wrong note. And I don't mean that as a pun. Was the movie this way? You were in the film.
Yes, I described the movie and all the phenomenon of the band's visit as kind of a miracle. Yeah, really, because when something goes wrong in plays or movies, you usually can define what was bad, like the material, the acting, the directing, whatever. But when something is going right and truthful, you cannot point your finger what exactly you put in this recipe, and it's really I define it as a miracle, because the whole elements, the story, the characters, the mood, the simplicity, the originality made it. Well, we shot the film in 24 days, I think. It was a low-budget film, and we didn't expect a lot of it, but we felt that we have something special in our hands while shooting it. But The minute it aired and went to the screens, we had a wonderful surprise. The first one was in Cannes Festival, and since then it never stopped till this day.
Yeah, this film has gotten a lot of awards in Europe and I guess in the Middle East. You are from Baghdad originally,
Yeah.
but your family moved to Israel when you were a child, and you are very well known in that part of the world and an award-winning actor in that part of the world. How did we get you over here to do this?
Yeah, it's quite funny. I mean, Oren Wolf, that I have to give him the credit, not only me, for initiating and this project. Approached me 2010 after he saw this film in New York in a small JCC theater, and he went to Israel and asked me if I will be ready to come to New York, to Broadway to do it. It sounds to me like the most crazy idea ever initiated, and I said, of course, yes. But in my heart, I believed it's the wrong idea. Okay, so it took him some years, and after almost 10 years.
Wow.
I invited after Tony Shalhoub, the wonderful Tony Shalhoub, had to leave the show on Broadway, so I joined eventually.
Now, I read a lot of stuff about you yesterday, and you said that actors steal from other actors all the time, and I'm just curious. Tony Shalhoub saw your film performance, you saw his stage performance. Who's stealing from whom here?
As a matter of fact, I haven't seen him on stage, but I saw kind of. He described it that I was his inspiration. So I am the inspiration of his inspiration of my inspiration.
The thing that made me smile from the very beginning is that they put up a slide, I guess, at the very beginning of the show, and then it's referenced at the end of the show that not long ago an Egyptian band came to a small town. We may not have heard about it because it was so unimportant, and it turns out to be very important to the people in this town, not the least of which is your character, Dina. Mm-hmm. Is that why you think this resonates with people? The impact that this visit, this one-day visit, has on these people is so intimately human that's why the audience reacts to it that way?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think so, yes, and I can only speak personally. When I saw it on Broadway, I thought about it for days later, and I didn't know why it had touched me so much, why I was so haunted, but I think the main thing that stuck with me was that it is a show. It's not about politics. This could be a big political show about, the Middle Eastern issues, and it's not. It really is a show about human connection, and these people are regular people. Yeah. And so what I loved about it is that, I think everybody wants their lives to be extraordinary, and I think a lot of the time we live ordinary lives and we find extraordinary things inside the regular, everyday business of living.
Which I think would make this place special. Shalina Kennedy, when we come back, we will hear Shalina Kennedy sing from this show. It's Charlotte Talks. Support for Charlotte Talks comes from WFAE members and Carolina Asthma and Allergy Centers, serving the Charlotte area since 1952 with 13 locations, including the center's newest office in Hickory. Breathe, live, thrive. CarolinaAsthma.com. And the Anson County Arts Council, celebrating a 40-year anniversary, presenting Gypsy tomorrow through Saturday, August 16th through the 18th. Details at AnsoniaTheater.com. What would happen if we ran out of water? Well, for a growing number of people, that is not an academic question. New data show that a quarter of the world's population is at risk of having no water. Water scarcity is already gripping India's biggest metropolitan area. So what can be done to turn this around? We'll be talking about that in 20 minutes at 10 o'clock on 1A. And we'll be back to talk more about the band's visit. They're visiting for a while through August 25th in just a moment.
Behind every All Things Considered headline, there's a deeper story.
This whole cycle of a superintendent leaving, an interim being named, and a national search being conducted has really dominated CMS for the last 8 years. Since Peter Gordon...
All Things Considered gets beneath the surface of the day's news. Listen weekday afternoons from 4 to 6:30 on 90.7 WFAE.
It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE and WFHE. I'm Mike Collins. We're talking to two of the cast members, the two leads in the band's Visit, which plays through August 25th at the Night Theater at Blumenthal Performing Arts. Sasson Gabay is with us. He plays Tufik. And Shalina Kennedy is Dina, the cafe owner, who is initially impacted by the band's visit to this little Israeli town. Here is the moment in the band's Visit in which Shalina Kennedy, as Dina, sings to Sasson Gabay, as Tufik, about her childhood. It is a breathtaking moment in the show.
Kulthum and Omar Sharif came floating on a jasmine wing from the west, from the south, honey in my ears, spice in my mouth, dark and thrilling, strange and sweet, Cleopatra and a handsome thief, and they floated in on a jasmine wing, Kulthum and Omar Sharif, and we danced with them in a jasmine-scented wind. Kulthum and Omar Sharif.
This is an example. That's Shalina Kennedy, our guest, actually singing. We rarely get to hear the performers who come through Charlotte perform the songs. It's usually the original cast. That's stunning, and you were stunning in that moment in the show.
Thank you.
It's you're sitting down across a table in a restaurant with Sasson over here, and you sing about your childhood and about seeing Egyptian movies on television with your mother, and it's just a moment of human connection between two essentially strangers. That is the whole story of this show in a nutshell.
Well, that's it. And I don't think that they really realize that they have anything in common
Right.
until music and art come into the picture. And that's the thing that they connect on. And that's what makes the show so beautiful, is that music does play a part in just about every scene. I mean, we meet these people, and each of the characters, both Egyptian and Israelis, they are all changed from the beginning of the show until the end. They all come out a little bit differently than they began.
As a matter of fact, in Israel, when I was young man, we used to listen to and watch the TV Egyptian film, because in Israel at that time there was not Israeli productions in the TV. There almost hardly was TV at all. And so this was our treat in Friday evenings, afternoon, to sit. Usually the family was gathered together because there was nothing else to see and to watch. So Shalina and Dina, the character, is described, as a matter of fact, things that we used to do in life, in real life.
At least it wasn't Gilligan's Island. Huh? Ben Brantley, writing in the New York Times, he's a theater critic for the New York Times, calls this one of the most ravishing musicals you will ever be seduced by, an honest-to-God musical for grown-ups. It is also, I think, there are a lot of people who don't like musicals because they say it's completely unnatural for people to be talking to each other and suddenly burst out into song. This is what happens in this musical, and it's absolutely necessary and absolutely natural. How do you achieve that? Because it looks completely real that this would happen.
Well, I mean, I think, for instance, in that song, I mean, it does come out of a conversation, and the beginning of the song is more conversational. We don't sort of just start singing blah, 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 like it happens naturally. And I do think of it, I don't know what you think, Sasson, but I think of it as a play with music, this one, because it feels like a play.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think what people have they don't like sometimes musicals because it's somehow artificial, and there's a lot of razzle dazzle and sparkling, which is unreal. And I think what this play musical can boast with is the sincerity, and it's really flatter the intelligence of the viewer, of the audience.
Yeah.
because it doesn't promise you anything that doesn't exist. It talks about real people.
You don't have any razzle dazzle, but you got Les Mis beat because you got two concentric turntables going at once. They only have one, I believe. And I'm curious about how you rehearse that without the turntables, but we'll talk about that off the air. The staging of this show, it seems to me, is brilliant. David Cromer is the director. It's brilliant because it looks unstaged. It looks the direction disappears. You don't even notice that it's been directed. And I'm curious as to why that might be. Is it because he's not a musical theater director? He's really a straight play director, and he just came in and directed this play as...
Maybe it's because of that. Because of that, so he doesn't pretend to stage it as a musical, but it's a real scene with the people. And
right.
I think he was very meticulous about his work.
Yes, he breaks a lot of the conventions. And normally you talk to the audience on a lot of things. Make sure you're always facing the audience when you're talking.
You're absolutely right.
Not here.
Yeah. He used to to tell me, forget about the audience, forget about the house, talk to your partner. And he was absolutely right. And he didn't try to do anything artificial than the real scene and the real emotion that goes in there.
There is a character who is focused on waiting to get a phone call from his girlfriend, and he's poised at this payphone, and he's there all night long with his hands out, just waiting to grab the receiver if the phone rings, and the phone never rings. And when he finally gets his moment in the show, and he gets his big song in the show, we never really see him because he's focused behind this phone booth, and the phone booth is on the turntable, and it's just moving. He never moves.
Yeah.
The whole show seems very still to me, and perfect because of the stillness. Does it feel like that to you?
Absolutely. I think that's part of the key is this. And then when there is movement and something happens from the stillness, it's an exciting moment, and there's a reason for it. And I also think too, I just want to say something else about the creative team, because everything from the choreography to the music department to the direction of the show move so seamlessly together, and I think that they are just a brilliant group of people. There's a lot of choreography in the show that we actually don't know. I mean, we don't realize that a lot of these moments are really choreographed, and so the fact that we've all been able to sort of weave these things in such a smooth way, I think just says a lot to our choreographer, to our director, to our musical department.
Some of the band is on the stage. Some of the band is somewhere else in the theater, I noticed. How many of the people on the stage are actually playing? Are they all playing?
They're all playing, but some of them are really in the pit.
Right.
So they run between the stage and the pit. They're musicians, some of them, and some of them are actors, musicians. Yeah.
Right. I'm curious about the guy who plays the person who loves Chet Baker. He sounds just like Chet Baker when he's singing. Is he actually playing trumpet? Because he's nailed Chet Baker's trumpet.
Should I tell you the truth? I don't know.
I think you should.
Okay. Because
We're looking around. Are we allowed to say
doesn't
this?
reveal their tricks. As a matter of fact, okay.
Don't tell me. I don't
with
want
his permission, no.
Yeah, there's really only 2 times that they're not playing the instruments, and that's one of them.
But they did it really so carefully organized, so you don't mention it. I think we must mention David Yazbek's works of the musical, the composer who, for this show. I mean, he's done a wonderful Middle Eastern music with attention to the American ear. That would be able to grasp this music.
It has the flavor of the Middle East, but you're not lost in trying to figure it out musically. Yeah. Also, the language. I mean, you are speaking English. We have a situation here where you're in Israel. Mm-hmm. They don't speak Egyptian, and you don't speak Israeli or Hebrew. So you speak most of the show in English. Obviously, you have to for us. But there are moments when you're speaking in Arabic and you're speaking in Hebrew. And you have said in a previous interview that they spent a great deal of time getting it right.
You mean the accent or what?
The accent and being able to actually speak it, because you're actually speaking Hebrew and Arabic.
Yeah, I know. And David Cromer was emphasized the thing that the English that will do it in a way that the American ear would be able to understand it. So we are working on it also. In fact, the fact that we were using a lot of English was we were a candidate for Oscar foreign film.
Okay.
And because we used too much English, it was, I think, 2 minutes more than allowed. We disqualified from this category, and it was quite a great, big disappointment for us at the time.
I think one of the things that surprised me also is the humor in this, because these people who are living in this small town are kind of, they feel like you get the impression that they feel resigned but trapped to living into this place that nothing ever happens and that there's nothing really to do except the disco roller rink that we see later in the show. It's sarcastic. It's funny in a way that says we're all in this together, if that makes any sense. It's because we all feel that, I think, about our lives from time to time. That we're resigned to this existence, and so we're fatalistic about it. And that's where the humor comes from.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a real sort of biting kind of sarcasm that comes out of it, which I find very funny. And David Cromer describes, especially that first waiting scene, when you meet the residents of Petah Tikva, as that moment just before you give up. So they haven't quite given up, but they're almost there.
But they usually there is a hope. I mean, there is a hope. And usually you see in musicals superheroes. We don't have superheroes. We have anti-heroes.
Right. Well, speaking of superheroes, you played one for, what, 1,200 performances?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Shirley Kennedy was Carole King for 1,200 performances or so in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. This is so different in every way possible.
Oh, it could not be more different, yeah.
And yet you kind of left that role to do this.
I did. I fell in love with it. I saw the Broadway show, and there was just something about it. Like what we were talking about before. I couldn't put my finger on it, and it lingered with me. And I just wanted to get into who she was. I don't have a better way to describe it. Also, the music was so incredibly beautiful. I just wanted to get a chance to sing it.
Wow. When you do a musical with lots of choreography and the flashing lights and the glitz and the sequence, it's pretty much set. And I guess it's not that. Correct me if I'm wrong, not that difficult to repeat it every night, night after night after night. But this show, it reaches into your soul. I mean, to repeat the honesty of the performances that you give, all of you give, night after night, and to hit the exact note, and I don't mean musical note, of the scenes every night. How is it difficult? Is it more difficult than doing Carole King?
Well, I think, there's challenges to both. And there were parts of playing Carol that were challenging as well. And I think the trick is in what you just mentioned, is that there is no repeat performance. As much as we try to make a carbon copy of something, if we try that, especially in this show, we will fail. You can only show up and be present and listen to your fellow actor. I mean, I catch myself sometimes. Oh, that moment that we had last night was perfect. I wonder if we can find it again. And you can't. You have to just be present and available to what is in the moment. And that's the beauty of theater.
Wow. You've been doing this a long time. You've been in theater a long time, Sasson. Theater, film, and television.
Not enough.
Not enough. Actors have layoffs. That's true. But your son is in this show with you.
That's
your son,
right.
Adam. And I was going to ask you if you had a chance to work with him in the past, but then I read that this is his debut.
That's right, absolutely right. First of all, he doesn't let me work with him. He would love to do everything on his own. Yes, it's his debut. I mean, he's involved with acting, with school acting, and then high school, etc. He directed and wrote for himself, and he, as a matter of fact, he's opening a TV series, HBO TV series, at the 12th of August of this month. In which he's doing one of the leads. It's called Our Boys. So he was visiting me on Broadway, and one of the actors, Ariel Stachel, and they were looking for Israeli characters. And he said, why won't he audition for it? And sure enough, he did it. and he loved by the creators. So I mean, it's really it's his debut. And I sometimes, I'm backstage and I'm looking at him and I don't believe it's like a fairy tale that my son is on stage doing scenes, and I'm waiting for him to finish his scene.
And he's fabulous. I just have to
He
say,
is fabulous.
he's wonderful.
Let's just back up here. It's really his debut. It's his professional debut, or 'cause
On
he's been-
stage.
clearly, he's been doing this a long time. Does he do more film and television than he does
He did
theater? Is that what the?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He did theater in school, but he did films and television, not a lot. But for theater, this is the really debut.
Because he does this role in this show of this very shy man who has never kissed a girl, and every time he has a relationship or tries to get into a relationship with a woman, he hears the sea in his ears, and he's essentially frozen in his tracks, and he plays it beautifully. He has this wonderful song that is just fabulous in the show. This is lovely. It is
Thank you.
funny. It is moving. It is about human connection, about how you make that connection and how that connection has the power to change lives in subtle ways that make the world a better place. It's a message that we don't often get to hear about, and we certainly don't get to see it on a stage in musical form. So thank you for bringing it to us, and congratulations for fabulous performances. Charlene Kennedy is Dina. Sesson Gabay is Tufik. The band's visit is at the Night Theater through August 25th. I cannot say enough about this. You need to see this show. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
very
inviting
much.
us. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.